Hello ghouls and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Haley Adams, and if you like all things spooky, ooky, kooky, not dooky, I suggest you hit that subscribe button down below. If you're a returning victim, I mean viewer, welcome back. So happy to have you here. Today is the first episode of a new show I'm starting here on my channel that I'm calling Horror Chats. Should be self-explanatory. We're going to talk about horror movies. New, old, fabulous, downright freaky, award-winning, dinner-spilling, you name it, we're going to talk about it whether I like it or not. It's going to be discussed, and we can have a civil discussion about it in the comments below, because I know today's topic might be a little bit controversial to some of you, but that is the beauty of my channel here. We can all talk to each other like full-grown 500-year-old adults, right? This evening's topic is Rob Zombie's 2012 film, The Lords of Salem. Yeah, I said Rob Zombie. Let's tuck in here. The film follows Heidi, a radio DJ played by none other than Sherry Moon Zombie. Did you guys expect any differently? Shut up about her. I love her. We'll get to that later. Heidi lives in Salem, Massachusetts, has pretty much an awesome life. She is this rock and roll DJ at this really cool radio station, has a fabulous apartment that is run by some very sketchy ladies. We will get to them later. But one night after radio DJing shift, she is given a box that was left at reception with the only title on it being The Lords. What's in the box is this really creepy record that when it's played just sounds like horrible violin scratching and awful drum beats, and it's just all around bad, like the last Bon Jovi concert I went to. Ugh. So of course, what does anyone do when they're given a strange record in the mail? They go home with their coworker and, hinted at former lover named Whitey, who is played by Jeff Daniel Phillips, who, by the way, lovely, lovely, lovely man. I met him last summer. I don't have enough nice things to say about him, just A+ guy all around. Not the point. They go back to her apartment and play this awful screechy record, and Heidi goes into this sort of trance-like state where she has this vision of these nasty witches back in Salem, way back when, 1600s, having this ritualistic ceremony where this child is born and then promptly sacrificed to the S-man down below. Yeah, Rob Zombie went there. Fully murdered that child. That happens. Trance breaks. She's not nearly as disturbed as they think she should be, but, night ends. They go to work the next day, so we get to see Heidi at her job once again with Whitey and also Herman, played by Ken Foree? Ken's a cool dude. Well, Ken. And on their show, they are interviewing a local author named Francis Matthias, played by Bruce Davidson, who, of course, has written a book about the Salem witch trials. So they have him on his show, and they say, yeah, let's play this record on the air for this guy and, all the listeners of Salem to just hear this awful. We can't even call it music. It's just, ugh. Well, they play the record, and pretty much any woman in Salem who is tuned in to this radio program completely just goes into a trance. Kind of like me when I listen to Freebird. God, I love Freebird. Well, to make an hour and 40-minute movie short, we see Heidi go back to her apartment, which is owned by a witch who has her sisters with her, and these aren't the nice cool witches that make pretty jewelry and collect moon water on a full moon. No. These are like Macbeth witches on crack, and then on meth on top of the crack, and then also Red Bull and a lot of Satan thrown in there as well. Okay, you get the point. They're scary. They're scary witches. They're played by Judy Geeson, Patricia Quinn, Magenta from Rocky Horror, and Dee Wallace, E.T.'s mom. Do you think E.T.'s mom could be scary? And she actually said when talking about this movie, she loved that she got to play a scary character and wasn't just seen as a nice motherly figure. And yes, she definitely is not. Spoiler alert, she beats a guy in the head with a frying pan, which that always makes me giggle. Well, we see these three witches gaslight, gatekeep, and girl boss their way through this entire movie, especially gaslighting poor Heidi this entire time. And this doesn't help her whole deal, because after hearing this record, she's just been having these awful, scary visions, these flashback visions of the 1600 Salem witches. And wonder why they're gaslighting the crap out of her? Yeah, because there's an evil plot afoot. Were you surprised? Were you surprised by that? I actually was. First time I watched it, I was like, oh, they're nasty. Dang it. So basically, all of this makes poor Heidi slip back into her drug addiction, which is exactly what these witches want. Why do they want to torture this seemingly poor, innocent girl so much? Well, it goes back to the 1600s. Turns out Heidi's real name is Adelaide Hawthorne, and she is a descendant of Jonathan Hawthorne, who witnessed, okay, I'm not going to use quotes for this because they were actual witches doing bad shit. So he witnessed these witches doing this stuff, accused them, got them burned at the stake. Side note, no witches were ever actually burned in Salem. Trust me, they died. They weren't actually witches. They were never burned. That was more of a European thing, but I digress. So he causes this, and then the head witch back in the day, played by the terrifying Meg Foster, she curses his bloodline that like his great something grandchild is going to bear the spawn of Satan. Well, this movie comes to a head with Heidi fully lost in the sauce. Poor girl. We're so sad for her the whole time. Oh, and if you're wondering, if you've been like Googling about this movie, yes, Heidi does have a beautiful golden retriever named Troy, who is actually played by a dog named Steve. And on the director commentary, all Rob Zombie could talk about was his dog named Steve. Don't blame him. But Troy lives. If you were worried at all, like I was, he lives. Back to the story. She is lost in the sauce and ends up going to a Lords of Salem concert, which is taking place in this old-ass theater. It's about 5 people in attendance, you know, like my last one-woman show. It brought back some flashbacks from that. I like to think my last one-woman show ended a bit better than this did, because freaky shit just starts happening all over the place. There's a goat, because there's always a goat. I don't know what that's about. Does somebody know why one day somebody was just like, goats are satanic? Is it because they have keyhole eyes and go like, because I do that. Yada yada yada, weird shit keeps happening. She starts making out with guitarists, you know, that's a fun time. There's some priest beating off in the corner, not as much of a fun time. And it ends with poor Heidi giving birth to this tentacle creature who actually kind of looks like Patrick Star if H.P. Lovecraft invented SpongeBob. So she gives birth to Lovecraftian Patrick Star, who is, you know, you guessed it, the child of Satan. It's very Rosemary's Baby. But honestly, Rosemary's Baby has a happier ending than this. The very last scene that we see is Heidi in this kind of parody of a Virgin Mary outfit, standing on this pile of naked dead women. Fun fact about the naked dead woman pile, Rob Zombie said it was one thing to stack these naked women, it was another thing to make sure they stayed still. But they did a good job in the final shot, which I did save a picture of, and then I was like, but I can't put that on YouTube. It's naked women, so just picture it or go watch the movie. And that is the final shot, except then we see this nice little montage of Heidi playing with her dog, which is very sad because what we can assume happened was she just got yeeted down to hell, Sam Raimi style, just dragged down there. And as the credits roll, we hear this news report talking about the mass suicide that happened at this concert, which they're assuming is why there was a pile of dead naked women. But if it was a mass suicide, why would they be in a pile? We need to be thinking better. And then we learn that Heidi is declared missing. And that is how the movie ends. So let's talk about it. Like with all of my main man Robert Zombert's movies, not a critical success. Coming in at 47% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 30%. I disagree. Yeah, it wasn't a screaming success, which I call bullshit on. The Lords of Salem was a concept that had been bouncing around in the back of Rob Zombie's head for years before it ever actually came to fruition. And few people know that Jason Blum, yeah, the CEO of Blumhouse, you guys like this movie a little bit better now that you know that he is involved. He's actually the catalyst for Lords of Salem getting made. He came to Rob Zombie and said, hey, let's do something supernatural, because up until this point, pretty much he had only done slashers. He had started the House of a Thousand Corpses Firefly trilogy, and then this was coming right off the back of his 2-movie Halloween deal, which again, not critical success. I actually really like the first one, and I don't hate the second one as much as everyone else does. I think it has its points, but we're not talking about Halloween right now. So coming off the back of that, and Rob Zombie, he just really wanted something he could have total creative control with, because he did not have that with Halloween. So he's like, hell yeah, man, let's do it. And that brings the idea for Lords of Salem back to the front of his mind, and he's like, let's fucking go. Rob Zombie, dare I say it, is a horror master. Don't throw eggs at me. He is a horror master. He can really dial into whatever genre he's working with and whatever subgenre comes of that, whether it be supernatural or slasher. You can tell he just has so much respect for all the horror movies that have come before, and he uses them for inspiration, but he doesn't just completely copy and paste. He puts his own flair on it, which is how you get this potty-mouthed, supernatural, spine-tingling thriller that is Lords of Salem. A lot of critics like to write off Rob Zombie's movies as just being redneck gore fests, which on the surface that can be true for a lot of his movies, but it actually goes deeper than that. And every director has their own style. Rob Zombie likes to say fuck a lot and have blood splurting in front of a neon background while his pretty wife is like dancing over in the corner. You know, that's his style. And then take someone like Christopher Nolan, he likes to confuse the hell out of us while we sit in a theater for 3 hours and then leave going, what the heck was that? And then he gets every single Oscar there is. You know, good for you, Christopher Nolan, I like your work. But no one could call this movie a redneck gore fest. In fact, in complete opposition to most of Rob Zombie's movies, there is very little gore, though while it is there, it is. It is potent, but I like that. But what Rob Zombie does with the Lords of Salem is he makes this almost psychological thriller on top of it being a supernatural horror movie, because gaslight, psychological, got been there. This movie leans into the more horrifying nature of how witches and witchcraft have been perceived throughout history. It does what Dario Argento's Suspiria and Robert Eggers' The Witch does, which is make witches terrifying, satanic, a little bit ugly. I mean, the movie kicks off with a scene of these witches getting naked and then just blaspheming until the cows come home. Pretty terrifying. Side note, why does everyone always make witches get naked? Especially in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is cold. You're telling me they're all just out there in the wilderness taking their clothes off? No, you're not getting me out in the Massachusetts wilderness getting naked for nothing. No, sir. And don't come at me, oh, it could have been the summer. The mosquitoes? You ever had a mosquito bite on your tit? No. Not realistic. But anyway, what this movie does is it creates such an air of uncomfortability. It's not just a movie that you can throw on in the background and relax while you're watching, unless you're a sicko, you know, then have fun. But everything from the visuals to the dialogue to the score makes this movie completely hair-raising. And despite the filming being riddled with setbacks, Rob Zombie had a much shorter shooting schedule than he had for any other movie. Cast members passed away and scenes had to be reshot, almost like it was a little bit cursed, like a lot of these sets get when they deal with these spooky things. That could be another video idea. Ooh. Despite all these setbacks, the film is still a harrowing portrayal of this descent into what I wouldn't even call madness, because total lack of control and madness are not the same thing. Like, she was basically just ripped from her life and forced to be a satanic little birthing puppet. And God, go register to vote, because, like I said earlier, sounds a lot like Rosemary's Baby. And that is what Rob Zombie does so wonderfully with his movies, is he clearly pulls inspiration from these iconic films that have set the tone for the genre, but he still does his own thing with it. Like how it's clear that House of a Thousand Corpses was heavily inspired by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but aside from a couple of similarities, they are completely different movies. Now on to the casting. Of course, everybody has something to say about the casting. Yes, Rob Zombie likes to use a lot of the same people, but so does Adam Sandler, Tim Burton, Christopher Nolan, Wes Anderson. Hold on, I have a list here. I have a list. Martin Scorsese and Judd Apatow, and I could go on and on and on. But there is a reason to this other than, hey, these are just my buddies. Well, you know, with Adam Sandler, it may just be, hey, these are my buddies, and I like to make a movie with them, which the result is usually hilarious, so it's fine. But there is a method to that madness. When you work with somebody so many times, and Rob Zombie has actually said this in an interview before, you learn how this person works, and vice versa, they learn how you direct. So it simplifies the directing process when you can be like, hey, do it how you did in 3 from Hell. And they go, yep, got it. So there's a reason for that, and these other directors and actors that like to have same people with them all the time, they'll tell you the same thing. It just really simplifies it, and also you can trust that these people are going to show up to set and they're not gonna be just a total, you know, Christina Aguilera about it. And of course, everyone's got something to say about Sherry. You know what I gotta say? Shut up! Shut up. I love her. I think she is lovely. And I do think she does a good job. Are there better actors out there? Yes, but everybody always has somebody better than them. Like, the world wouldn't keep spinning if there was just one baseline level for how people were. But especially in this movie, I think she gives a very good, very heartbreaking performance. And her performances are always varied. You don't just get Baby Firefly every single time you see her. And I do think that's a holdup for some people, because that is the first time we have ever seen her in a movie who is playing this kooky, outrageous character. And then when we see her more toned down, like she is in Lords of Salem or Halloween, people are like, well, she's not doing nothing. That's how the character's written. Come on now. Have some nuance about things. And also, Judd Apatow always casting his wife and everything. Same with Adam Sandler. It's things directors do. Oh, and don't get me started on Helena Bonham Carter. I mean, she's great, but. So we're gonna start to sum up here. If you're still with me, thank you. My personal thought on this movie is, if you were to have slapped the A24 logo on it, reception would have been so different. Argue with the wall. It's the truth. I believe that Lords of Salem is actually Rob Zombie's best movie. It's not my favorite. House of a Thousand Corpses does hold that place in my heart, but it's a masterpiece. Let's be real. From the way it's shot, acted, score, like I was saying earlier, it does what it set out to do with so many setbacks in such a limited time. It gets the job done, and it's wonderful. And no, I am not placing this on the same level of extreme horror that I would put, say, Terrifier on. Totally different, but again, not for everyone, not for beginners. But I have also seen people argue that there aren't enough scares in this movie. While there are a few jump scares, it does not rely on it. But me personally, I think somebody losing all of their free will and just being taken to be a pawn of Satan is pretty terrifying. But maybe you had to be a 12-year-old being forced to go to church camp where they told you you were going to go to hell if you were lusting over boys and wearing lip gloss to actually find this movie scary. I was 12. All I did was wear lip gloss and lust over boys. What do you want? So I guess, religious trauma is not that scary if you don't have religious trauma, so I get it. Which again is why I say not for everyone, and we can all have a different opinion. And I know you guys are already typing in the comments, saying what you want to say, but let's stop. Let's just be nice. We can have a nice discussion about things, and if you don't like this movie all that much, again, that's fine. Just don't be a dick about it. And that is it for the first inaugural episode of Horror Chats talking about Lords of Salem. Thank you so much for sticking around. If there is a movie that you were just burning for me to talk about, let me know down in the comments below. If you're dying for more spooky content between uploads, you can check me out on TikTok and Instagram at its_Haley Adams there as well. But that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do something spooky today, and I will see you in your dreams. Sleep tight!